Hi, everyone. I'm Shelly, and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. There is so much going on in the world right now, especially in the education system, and it has driven droves of parents to start homeschooling their children. And unfortunately, a lot of these parents are feeling like they've been forced into the situation and they really don't want to do it to begin with. So, this video is really for those parents, but it's also for any homeschooling parents who could use some encouragement because I just want to remind you that it's not just about the academics. Homeschooling really does change everything. I think there can be nothing scarier as a parent than realizing that you're being pushed into a situation that you have not been prepared for at all. And this certainly applies to all of the parents who are starting to homeschool now for various reasons, who never thought that they would ever be entering a lifestyle like this. And it is hard, especially if you've never had the time to actually research it, to talk about other homeschooling families, and you just try to jump in and you automatically want to get started with the schoolish learning, which is really what most people think of when it comes to homeschooling. And I just wanted to tell you that, yes, that is certainly a very important aspect of homeschooling. But as from one parent to another, I just want to say that it doesn't just change the life of your children, it changes the life of you as the parent in a good way. And I could go on and on and on with all of the advantages to homeschooling in this video, but I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to 5 ways that homeschooling has really impacted not only my children, but me as a parent and our entire family. And I'm hoping that it will help you to realize that, yeah, it might seem hectic at first and you might seem like you don't know what you're doing, but you've got this and you are going to find your way. So, the first thing that really changed for all of us was that we went from rushing to relaxation. Now, I don't want to put out this myth that homeschooling is always relaxed. Even in a relaxed homeschool, it's not always relaxed. I've got 6 kids who are homeschooling right now. At one point, I had 10 children homeschooling. So, no, it certainly isn't relaxed all the time. But what I mean by going from rushing to relaxation is that since you are in charge of your child's education, you can decide what time you get up, what time you begin school, when you do certain things, if you're going to take the day off. These are all situations that have been directed more towards the school district, and you've always kind of had to focus on following someone else's schedule. But that's not so in a homeschool. In a homeschool, you can gradually get up. You can let your children have the sleep that they need. You can get the sleep that you need, or you can have that additional quiet time in the morning while your children are getting that extra sleep. You can all ease into the day. Have a slow breakfast instead of a rushed breakfast. Drink a cup of hot chocolate. Drink a cup of coffee. Actually have time to sit and do your devotions, read the newspaper, whatever it is that you want to do, and not feel like the clock is ticking the entire time. And I remember those days. I remember when my children were in school and I felt like everything was rush, rush, rush. And since I always felt rushed, I felt like I was always snapping at my children because I always needed to make sure that everyone was exactly where they needed to be. Things were always missing, like shoes, homework, backpacks, toothbrushes. Even now, my kids lose their toothbrushes all the time. I don't know why, but maybe because they just don't want to brush their teeth, but that's another story. But anyway, that completely disappears when it comes to homeschooling, unless, of course, you have something in the morning that you have to get to. Yeah, there are days like that, like church days maybe, or if you have an appointment. But most days, you really do have the time to just ease into your day, enjoy your children, and don't worry about getting things done by the clock because you, the parent, are the one that's in charge of all that. So, the second thing that has really made a difference is family relationships. When my children were gone all day, first of all, when they would come home, they would all be fighting and bickering with one another. It was like they had to make up for lost time. And another thing that I noticed is that when my children were in school all day, That's a long day for a child. Not even just for, a kindergartner, which it's a super long day for a kindergartner, but even for high schoolers. It's a long day to be mostly sitting at a desk, watching a teacher give a lecture or a PowerPoint, or maybe watching videos. And then a lot of times they have after school activities, they have homework, and then they come home. And a lot of parents, I was one of them, expect their children to do chores. And imagine the kind of pressure that that is on any child. And what I realized is that when my kids were in school, I was getting the what you would call the leftovers of their day. All the very best moments that they had were typically happening in a school setting, not necessarily when I say their best moments, I don't mean things that were happening to them, but I'm saying like their peak focus time was all happening during school hours. And then by the time that they got home, they were just lethargic. They were tired. They didn't want to deal with anything anymore because I've often said this, that school is like a job that kids don't get paid for, and then they have to bring their work home with them when it comes to homework. So yeah, so a lot of times I remember my oldest daughter, she would come home from school and she was never really one to get grumpy, but she would just retreat to her bedroom, and I would not see her the entire day until, maybe it was time to eat. Then she would go right back up to her room, and then I would see her again the next morning when it was time for her to go back to school again. And my children, again, they were spending time together after school, but it wasn't good time. And again, I'm not going to say that my children never fight anymore, because most children, most siblings do argue. So it happens. But they don't need to worry about making up for lost time because they are together all the time. So they have had so much time to become great friends. And I actually feel now like I know my children. Once I started homeschooling, that daughter that always used to retreat to her bedroom, I got to know her so much better. She would come downstairs every day while I was making lunch, and she would just talk to me just about anything. It could be her dream, it could be something that she wanted to do, or some plans that she had for that day, but she would talk to me for like an hour at some points. And that was wonderful to me because I finally was feeling like I was getting a connection with my daughter that I never was able to have before. And this has really impacted us as a family, is just being together more often. It's not always easy. It's hard being with the same people day in and day out. But what I always tell people is that the more time you spend with your children, the more used to it you get. And I think that's a problem that a lot of parents have when they say things like, oh boy, summer vacation is coming. Great. What am I going to do with my kids? It's because they don't know how to spend time with their children, because they don't usually do it. Weekends is the most that they get. Or after school, when again, most kids are retreating or, doing homework. It's not really family time. So I assure you that the more time you spend with your children, you are going to get more used to it. And you're going to learn to cherish that time that so many other families do not have. So the fourth thing, and it's really kind of tied to that, is that home is central when you are homeschooling. So there's this movie, and it's a book called A Boy Called Christmas. And I don't know if they say it in the book because I've never read the book, but I have seen the movie. And in the movie, there's a quote that says, "Home is not a place, it's a feeling." And that really hit me because that can be true on so many levels. When your children are home with you all day, you could be out and about doing things. You could be out doing nature study. You could be at the grocery store. You could be visiting with friends. But the togetherness that you all have, that in itself is home. And I have to say, though, that while all that is true, that home isn't a place, it's a feeling, I think that the home aspect of it really does need to be treated with more importance than it is. I know a lot of times I've made a video about this where people will try to say, yes, we homeschool, but we're never home, because there's just this myth, this homeschool myth, this stereotype that homeschoolers never leave home. They're just constantly there all day long in their houses. Their kids are kind of trapped, and it's like their prison, and that's it. That's what homeschooling is. And we know that's not what homeschooling is, but some people go completely out of the way. They try to do the opposite because they want to try to dispel that myth, that they say, oh, well, we're never home. We're at the museum. We are at the pool. We are at the gym. We are here. We are there. And they try to just make this whole point that homeschooling can happen anywhere, which it can. Homeschooling can definitely happen anywhere. But yeah, for most people, a large part of it does happen at home. And there is nothing wrong with that because there truly is no place like home. Um, it's a physical place but it's a physical place of comfort. There's memories there. There's love. They remember all the connections that they have there. And it's something that when your children grow up and they have their own families, they're going to have so many of those memories of the things that you did, not just after school, not just on the weekend, but the time that you all spent learning together, doing the things that you love because you made that decision to have that life with your children. And the last thing that I'm going to talk about today, and again, it's nowhere near being the only thing. This could go on and on and on. When I used to keep up with my blog, I wrote so many posts like 50 reasons that homeschooling is better than school. Yes, I actually did that. Like 100 reasons for this, 50 reasons for that. And you could actually go back on my blog. I'll leave a link in my description box and you can go through it and see all the posts that I have about these things. But I just wanted to go over the main ones that I think are really important because, again, it's not all about the educational aspect of it. It's about the familial aspect. It's about the connections that you make with your children. But the last thing is that everyone in your family can grow in their understanding of the world because in homeschooling, you should be encouraging your children and yourself to find, develop, and dive into your passions, those things that you really want to know more about. And you can do that in your own time and in your own way. And that's how your children can do it. And when I say that you should be doing these things, it's because you are the example for your children. What your children see you doing, that's what they are going to want to be doing. So if they see that you are curious about the world, they are likely to want to be curious about the world. And homeschooling gives you a great opportunity to do that, not just for yourself, not just for your children, but for all of you to do it together. And honestly, there's no better learning than that. That's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one either here or over on Instagram. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.